I should have trusted my gut the moment we passed that broken sign. It was half buried in the overgrowth, split down the middle with the words Camp Stillwater, closed by order of. Too faded to make out. But we were stubborn. Or maybe just stupid. 4 friends chasing a cheap thrill in the middle of nowhere, Oregon. We were told it was once a Boy Scout campground shut down after some kind of incident in the 80s. The details were vague. Some said a counselor disappeared. Others whispered about a fire. Whatever it was, the land had been untouched for decades, and that was the appeal. The deeper we drove into the woods, the more unnatural everything started to feel. The air was too still. No birds. No wind. It was like something was holding its breath. We found a clearing with 3 decaying cabins and a fire pit choked with weeds. We set up our tents, cracked some beers, and tried to shake off the unease. That night, as we sat around the fire, Kevin pulled out a weathered journal he claimed he found in one of the cabins. The name on the inside read Counselor Rachel, July 1984. He flipped through the pages, reading aloud. Most of it was boring. Entries about kids hiking or roasting marshmallows. But then it changed. July 15th. One of the boys says he saw someone watching from the treeline. We told him it was just shadows. July 17th. Another kid went missing. They're calling the parents tomorrow. I don't know what's happening. July 19th. Something is in the woods. I can hear it breathing at night. We all laughed nervously, pretending it was some elaborate prank Kevin was pulling. But the unease in my stomach didn't go away. It twisted harder when I noticed something strange in the firelight. Bare footprints in the dirt. Not ours. They were smaller, like a child's. None of us said anything. We just turned in for the night. I woke around 3 a.m. to the sound of whispering. At first, I thought it was a dream. But then I heard it again, right outside the tent. Help me, please. I sat up, my heart slamming against my ribs. The voice was soft. Childlike. I unzipped the tent just an inch and peered out. Nothing. But the forest, it wasn't still anymore. Something was crunching the leaves. Circling. Then a scream tore through the camp. Kevin's voice. Then silence. I ran out barefoot into the dark. My flashlight caught a glimpse of him stumbling near the old cabins. Blood on his arms. He was shaking. As someone grabbed me, he gasped. From under the cabin. It's hollow under there. I swear something's down there. We gathered everyone and packed up in under 5 minutes. We didn't even bother with the tents. The drive back felt eternal and no one spoke. A week later, I looked up the camp's history again. Dug deeper this time. In 1984, 4 children vanished during a summer session. 3 bodies were found in shallow graves near the cabins. The 4th was never recovered. Her name was Rachel, and she wasn't a counselor. She was one of the kids. They say the real counselor Rachel was fired for negligence the day before the disappearances. The journal Kevin found? It shouldn't exist. But here's what really messed with me. I never told anyone this, but when I got home and unzipped my backpack, the journal was in there. Not Kevin's. Mine. My name on the inside cover. Written in handwriting that isn't mine. Dated July 19th, 1984. The last entry reads, I came back with them. They don't know it yet. My girlfriend and I loved our weekend escapes into the mountains. Just the 2 of us, far from our screens and the pressure of city life. Living near the Appalachian region in Virginia gave us endless options. But one trip changed how we look at the wilderness forever. It was early fall, and we chose a lesser-known 3-mile trail based on its good reviews and peaceful scenery. Rain began falling as we approached the trailhead, which wasn't unusual. What was strange, though, was the lone car parked on the roadside, with the passenger door slightly ajar. My girlfriend thought maybe someone was still around, but no one was in sight. I walked over and gently shut the door. The interior was soaked. Expensive car. Odd. The rain was steady but not a downpour, so we geared up and began the uphill hike. Nearly 2 hours later, we reached the flat camping zone and saw a single tiny tent already pitched dead center of the clearing. It was obviously meant for one person. Assuming someone was inside hiding from the rain, we set up our own tent in a quiet corner and got comfortable. An hour passed. Then we heard voices. They were muffled through the rain, but I saw two men outside, standing too close to our tent. I startled. They smiled and introduced themselves, saying they were camped here and had been out for several days. They didn't look like campers, clean-shaven, wearing dry jeans and sneakers, and without any visible gear. We watched them return to the little tent, far too small for two grown men. And somehow, it hadn't looked occupied earlier. We kept the zipper slightly open through the evening, watching for movement. But nothing. By nightfall, we turned in. I woke up to pee sometime in the night. I slipped outside in my poncho, the rain pattering steadily. That's when I saw the small tent's flap wide open, and no one inside. A sudden rustling in the trees behind our tent froze me in place. Voices. Then two dark shapes, standing just beyond the shadows. It was the men. They weren't speaking, just watching. I sprinted back and shook my girlfriend awake. As we whispered urgently, a voice came from just feet behind the tent, soft and almost rehearsed. "You're not alone out here, are you?" I burst from the tent with my pocket knife, and they were there, standing still, emotionless, rain dripping off their faces. I screamed at my girlfriend to run. We abandoned most of our gear and tore down the trail in the dark. When we reached the road, the same car was still parked there. The passenger door, open again. We drove straight to a gas station and called the police. Days later, we found out the car was registered to an elderly man missing for over a week. The tent, his. None of his gear was recovered, only strange footprints around the site. No trace of the two men. We still don't know what we walked into that night, but I've never gone camping without a weapon again. We should have turned back when we found the deer carcass hanging upside down. It was strung up between two trees, 10 feet off the ground, gutted from neck to belly like something out of a horror movie. No claw marks, no bullet wounds, just clean, deliberate incisions. It wasn't natural. Nothing about it was. But we were deep in Olympic National Forest, 3 of us, all guys, all used to backcountry hikes. Ben, the fearless one. Jake, the skeptic. And me, just the idiot with the GoPro trying to make video content out of every trip. Ben joked that it was probably a mountain lion. Jake said it was some sick hunter. I said nothing. I just kept glancing over my shoulder because the trees felt wrong. They weren't just silent, they were watching. We set up camp at the base of an old ridge about a mile from where we found the deer. No cell signal, of course, and the nearest ranger station was at least a 2-hour hike back. But the fire felt warm, the whiskey was strong, and eventually the unease started to fade. Until sometime after midnight. It began with tree knocks. Not random, not like branches falling. No, 3 slow knocks, spaced apart. We froze. Jake laughed nervously and said it was probably a woodpecker. But woodpeckers don't echo like that. They don't shake the ground. And they don't call out afterward. Because what followed next wasn't an animal call. It was a voice. Low. Guttural. Like someone trying to mimic human speech through a throat not built for it. Go! We killed the fire instantly and grabbed our knives and flashlights. Ben wanted to shine his beam toward the ridge. I told him not to. I don't know why, maybe instinct, but every part of me screamed not to give away our position. Then came the footsteps. Heavy, slow, crunching pine needles like bones. Not one set, 2, coming from different directions. We backed into the tent and killed the lights, sitting in the pitch dark, barely breathing. Outside, something moved around our camp. Circling, huffing, clicking its teeth, yes, clicking, like it was communicating with the other one. Jake started whispering that it had to be bears. But bears don't make clicking sounds. They don't mimic human speech. And they sure as hell don't tap on the tent walls with long, spindly fingers. Yes, fingers. I felt them drag across the nylon. I'll never forget that. Ben snapped. He unzipped the tent and lunged out with the flashlight. I wish he hadn't. I saw it for maybe 2 seconds. Just 2. 8 feet tall. Covered in dark matted fur. Arms longer than they should have been. Shoulders wider than any man's. But the eyes, that's what ruined me. They didn't glow. They reflected. Like a mirror. And they looked angry. Ben screamed. Then he was just gone. No growl. No struggle. Just the sound of branches breaking and his scream vanishing into the trees. Jake and I ran. Left everything. sprinting blind through the woods like lunatics until we found a dry riverbed and collapsed under an overhang, too terrified to sleep. We waited until morning, then hiked all the way back to the trailhead. Never found Ben. Never found his flashlight. Nothing. We went to the rangers, told them everything. They searched for 2 days. Found scraps of our gear, but no signs of Ben. Official report listed him as missing under unknown circumstances. But here's what I've never said out loud. When I reviewed the little footage I had left on my GoPro, I caught something in one of the early clips. Just before sundown, when we were setting up camp. In the far background, maybe 30 feet behind the trees, there's this tall, shadowy figure just standing still. I showed it to Jake once. He made me promise never to bring it up again. I don't go into the woods anymore. I don't even camp. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't human, and I know what I saw. I was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for a short work trip, one of many that year. The job had perks, sure, but the endless flights and sterile hotels left me feeling disconnected. On a rare free day, I decided to explore a forest trail I found online. It was supposed to be serene, a 6-hour round trip with beautiful fall foliage. I arrived near noon. No other cars in sight. Almost immediately, I passed a man sitting cross-legged beside the trail. He wore a hoodie with the hood pulled low and didn't seem to notice me. But as I passed, I felt his eyes lift and follow me. No hello, just tracking. Unnerved, I kept moving. An hour in, I sat on a log for a snack. When I looked back up the trail, there he was again, walking toward me. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and started walking quickly. A few minutes later, I heard fast footsteps. The man jogged up behind me. I moved aside, but he stopped. Without a word, he pulled out a weathered wallet. "You dropped this," he said. I told him I hadn't brought a wallet. "No," he insisted, pushing it toward me. "This is yours." Something about the way he said it gave me chills. The wallet looked old and empty, totally useless. I reluctantly took it. He smiled wide, said "You're welcome," and turned back down the trail. I stood frozen, heart racing. I opened the wallet again. It was torn inside, like something had been removed. No ID. No cash. Just a strange, lingering smell, almost metallic. Suddenly, I felt like I was being watched. I turned back and started walking the return path. Near dusk, I arrived at the parking lot, just as the sky turned orange. I spotted movement by my car. A shadow crouched low behind it. I slowed my pace and moved to the opposite side. With my heart pounding, I unlocked the passenger door, slipped in, and locked the doors. A second later, slam. The man was there, pounding the driver's side window. His face twisted in rage. "Give it back," he screamed. "That wallet is mine." I crawled to the driver's seat and peeled out of the lot, tires skidding on the gravel. In the rear view, I saw him vanish into the woods. I turned into the nearest police station and handed them the wallet. They took a report, but there wasn't much they could do. I never found out what the wallet really was or why he was so obsessed with it, but I've never accepted anything from a stranger since. Last October, I finally took a solo trip to revisit a remote hiking loop I had done years ago with friends. The trail wasn't popular, mostly used by hardcore hikers, not casual walkers. The plan was to camp out for one night before finishing the loop the next day. I hit the trail late morning, the crisp air and golden leaves putting me in a great mood. Halfway in, I noticed a man walking toward me. No backpack, no visible gear, just a flannel shirt and cargo pants. He waved. I nodded back. As we passed, I heard his footsteps stop. I turned slightly. He asked, "Where's your group?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't told anyone I was alone. I responded instinctively, "Just ahead, catching up." He smiled like he already knew the truth. The encounter ruined the rest of my hike. I kept checking behind me. I veered off the main trail to set up camp about half a mile into the woods, in a secluded patch of land beneath some pines. The sun went down quickly, and the forest turned quiet. Too quiet. Hours into lying in my tent, I heard slow, deliberate footsteps outside. Then they stopped. I stayed still, breathing as quietly as I could. My knife was in my hand the entire time. The footsteps never resumed. Just silence. When the sky began to brighten, I unzipped my tent and peeked out. Nothing in sight. Relieved but still shaken, I began packing quickly. That's when I saw them. Boot prints in the dirt. Less than 10 feet from my tent. Deep, pointed into the direction I was sleeping. Someone had stood there for a while, watching. I didn't waste another second. I grabbed everything and sprinted to the trail. My legs didn't stop moving until I saw the gravel parking lot again, my car still there. I drove straight to the ranger station and reported it. They said people sometimes wander through the forest off trail, but they didn't have any reason to search the area unless I was attacked. I wasn't, but I know I was stalked, and I know whoever it was, they wanted me to be alone.